pleasure to be here. Thank you all for coming, and I want to thank Rav Masri for graciously hosting us here. And because we are right before the high holidays, so I want to talk about getting ready spiritually. It's like a very spiritual time. Everybody's talking about the soul, purifying the soul, tshuva, repentance, coming back to your soul, cheshbon nefesh, doing an accounting of the soul. It's that time of year. And rarely do we actually talk about what is the soul. What is the soul exactly? We all say soul, neshama, this, that. Like, what is that? We know a lot about the body. I'm sure we're all more or less familiar. You get your body checked every so often. You go to the doctor, you get this, X-ray, MRI. You more or less know your organs. What about your spiritual organs? How does the soul interact with the body? Do we know the anatomy of the soul? So the goal of today is to start at least to discuss. There's a lot to say. Let's see how far we can go to talk about what is the soul actually made of, what are its components, how does it interact with the body, what happens to your soul when you sleep, when you dream, whatever, all these kinds of things. And so some of this, we'll start with a little bit of a review, things you may have already heard, probably already heard, and then I promise as we go on, we'll get deeper and deeper, and by the end of it, it'll be hopefully something fresh and deeply mystical and esoteric and things that you probably haven't heard before about your soul. So it's getting to know your soul tonight. That's the goal. In preparation for Rosh Hashanah and the high holidays and all that. So what are some of the words you've heard in the Torah for a soul? What do we know? Which words have you heard? Good. Right, nefesh ruach. So you got all five already. See, we have Kabbalists here already in the room. Where's the first time that you see the word soul even mentioned in the Torah?
Ruach Hashem on Bereshit.
Good. So you have right in the second verse in the Torah that Ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. That's a spirit of God. What about a human soul? When's the first time you hear about a human soul?
On the sixth day when he made Adam.
Right. So you see when God made Adam, the verse is V'yitzer Hashem Elohim et ha'adam afar min ha'adama. God formed the human from the dust of the earth. Ve'ipach be'apav, and he blew into his nostrils nishmat chaim. So that's the first time you see the word neshama. He blew a neshama into Adam. And of course, neshama is tied really closely to the word neshima. What's neshima? Breathing. And it's explicit in the verse that God breathed into his nostrils. So there's a very intricate connection between the soul and breathing. And we'll come back to that as well. What is exactly that connection? What's the relationship between my soul and my breath? We've all heard that before, but maybe we haven't actually thought about what is exactly the relationship between my breathing and my soul? The oxygen that I'm breathing in and other gases, and my actual soul that keeps me alive. So we have to explore that. And the verse continues, Vayiha Adam, and then the man became lenefesh chaya. He became, now it's a different word. Now it's nefesh. So what's the difference between nefesh and neshama? Not the same. So God blew into him a neshama, and he became lenefesh chaya. He became some kind of living, chaya is alive, living. So he became a living nefesh. And Kabbalistically, we actually split those two terms. The pshat here is len nefesh chaya is one term, that he became one living being. But in Kabbalah, as Rachel said, that really nefesh and chaya are two different terms for the soul. What's the difference between a nefesh and a chaya? So far we have actually three words for a soul. Neshama, nefesh, chaya. Okay, good. That's the first time we see three different words here in this verse. And then you also see the word ruach, which we saw previously, ruach Elohim. That was referring to a spirit of God. But then we also see ruach in reference to people and also in reference to animals. For example, with Noach, with the flood, it says, Vayavo el Noach el hateva, shnaim mikol habasar. As we all know, 2 of every animal came to Noach, to the ark, to be saved from the flood. Mikol habasar asher bo ruach chaim. From all the living things that have the spirit of life. So now we have another term, ruach. So all together now, we have 4. So we have the nefesh, ruach, neshama, and chaya. What's missing? There's one more level of the soul called the yechidah. We've heard of those before? Who's heard of the yechidah before? Anybody not heard of the yechidah before? Can anybody define the yechidah? Anybody? Anybody have an idea? Yeah.
It's the part that's most connected to the Ein Sof.
Right. So that's usually what we hear about. It's the part that's most connected to Hashem, that combines you to Hashem in some way. Where do we first see it? Does this word appear in the Torah? Did you want to add something? No. Where does this word appear in the Torah? Meaning this soul, yechidah. It doesn't. There's 4 names for a soul in the Chumash itself, in the Torah of Moses. The 5th level of soul does not appear in the Chumash, and we'll have to answer that question too. Why is it not found in the Chumash? The 5th and highest level of the soul. But where does it appear for the first time? Who's seen that word in Tanakh somewhere? So it appears in Tehillim. It actually appears on several occasions in Tehillim. And you've all read these verses before. We've all read Tehillim many times. And I've spoken before about one of the problems. It's beautiful that we're all reading Tehillim all the time. But one of the side issues is that we forget how deep and profound Tehillim is. Because we're so used to just reciting the verses, whatever it is, for the refuah shlema of this person, I take upon myself to read 10 or 20 or 50 or 150 or whatever it is, and then you kind of zoom through them, but we rarely stop to actually think about what is David HaMelech actually telling us, because it's absolutely deep and profound stuff in Tehillim. So much of Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism is straight out of Tehillim. It's all verses from Tehillim. An amazing thing. So we sometimes forget that. We got to stop and actually explore. There's the Midrash. There's a text called Midrash Tehillim, and it starts by saying that King David asked God to make Tehillim as complicated as Negaim and Noalot, as the most profound and deep as the most complicated tractates of Mishnah, Gemara, of the oral tradition. And the reward for reading Tehillim should be the reward that you would get for completing even the most complicated tractates of the oral law. So it's very profound. So King David says, and you've all read these psukim, for example, Hatzila mecherev nafshi, save my nefesh from the cherev, from a sword, save my nefesh from the sword, miyad kelev yechidati, and save my yechidah from a dog. So he says, save my nefesh, save my yechidah. But it's not defined. What is the yechidah? Elsewhere he says, Adonai kama tirehe hashiva nafshi, restore my nefesh, right? Mishoem, from their destruction. Mikfirim yechidati. Again, save my soul from the lion, my yechidah from the lions. And so yechidah does appear in Tanakh, not in the Chumash, but in Tanakh. So altogether we have 5 names for the soul, and the Midrash Rabbah summarizes it all for us. So remember, Midrash Rabbah is one of the early Midrashim. It's like Chazal. It's equivalent to essentially from the same time period as the Talmud. And Midrash Rabbah tells us, Chamisha Shemot Nikarula. There are 5 names for the soul. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Yechidah, Chaya. And then it continues, and it explains what each one is. And it says, Nefesh, where is Nefesh? The Torah always tells us about the Nefesh. Where is the Nefesh? In the blood, right? This is repeated many, many times in the Torah in different variations. Ki hadam hu hanefesh, or hanefesh badam hu, that the blood is intertwined with the nefesh. The nefesh is in your blood. So lowest level of soul is nefesh, and that's associated with the bloodstream. Right? Ruach, she'i ola veyoredet. Ruach is something already more active. Ruach also means wind. Ruach is spirit, it's wind, it's something that's more moving and going all over the place. And it quotes a verse from Kohelet, Mi yodea ruach bnei adam, ha'olah hi lemala. Who knows the ruach of man, King Solomon says, that goes up. That the ruach is actually able to go up to heaven. So the nefesh stays in your body. The nefesh is always, it's associated with your bloodstream, stays in your body. The ruach, though, is able to ascend. That's what the Midrash is quoting from King Solomon, that Ruach is able to actually go up from your body and is more interactive, and we'll see what happens to the Ruach and how the ruach interacts with the world. Neshama, what's the neshama? Where's the neshama rooted in? Brain. So neshama, the Midrash says, zu ha'ofiyah. This is your ofi, this is your personality, this is your intellect, this is your consciousness, and that's rooted in your brain. And the word is related to Shem, to your name. Neshama, Shem. Because your name is tied to your identity and your consciousness. And so this is the essence of who you are is mamash your neshama. Chaya shekol ha'evarim metim ve'i chaya baguf. Chaya is something special that even when all the organs die, the chaya is not dead. Right? So kol ha'evarim metim ve'i chaya. Like this thing is still alive, even if all the organs wither away. It's not attached to any particular organ. It's not rooted in any organ. The nefesh is rooted in the blood. The neshama is rooted in the brain. The ruach, we didn't say yet, but we'll see later how the ruach is rooted in your vital organs, and we'll see exactly how. So the lower three, nefesh, ruach, neshama, are associated with your body. The chaya is not quite associated with your internal body parts. What is your chaya connected to? Your chaya is often described as an aura, as something that already exudes out of your body. Finally, you have the Yechidah, that is the singular one. It says it's unique. It's like your one umbilical cord that it connects you to Hashem. It's almost like a divine umbilicus, as like this wire that connects you directly to Hashem. Maybe a cable, if you're plugged into the matrix. That's a matrix metaphor. The thing that plugs you into this something that feels like a simulation that we're in, that cable is your Yechidah. Connects you directly to the upper dimensions, essentially. Again, it's unique and it's singular and it's the highest level, and we'll have to, of course, define what that is. And then the Midrash continues, B'shah she'adam yoshen, when a person is sleeping, neshama mechamemet aguf shelo yitztanen v'yamut. One part of your soul stays in your body to keep you alive, and the others are going on a journey. And the verse that the Midrash uses is Adu dichtiv ner Hashem nishmat adam. King Solomon says, Ner Hashem, the candle of God, is the soul of man. Ner Hashem nishmat adam. Very important verse. And that's really the basis for lighting candles on a yard site for somebody that's passed away. What's the connection? Person's dead. Why light the candle? So, Ner Hashem nishmat adam. The candle is symbolic of, the burning flame is symbolic of the soul. The wax or the olive oil, whatever it is that you're burning, is the body that burns, that is consumed and eventually is gone, but the fire remains. And you can always move the flame over, right? If this candle is about to run out, you just take from esh la esh, take from here, move to the other one. And you can keep doing that forever, and the fire never ends. And that's also a metaphor kind of like for reincarnation. So even when the wax is all gone, the olive oil is all gone, the body, the material is gone, the fire doesn't have to be gone. You just transfer it to the next one and to the next one. And then you can keep transferring it. And it doesn't have to be the same fuel source. It can go from a candle to olive oil to whatever, bameh madlikin, with all the different types of oils and wicks. You can keep transferring it over and over again. And that's like a metaphor for reincarnation. You reincarnate as wax, you reincarnate as olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, whatever health fad you're into at that particular incarnation. So that's the metaphor. So the soul, the flame of the soul is this metaphor, very important one. And the Zohar and the Arizal will also tell us that Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. What does Ner stand for? Nefesh, Ruach. Nefesh, Ruach, Hashem, Nishmat Adam. So you actually have all three major souls, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, in this pasuk are actually all embedded in it. In the Zohar and in many other works, you'll often find, even in the Sidur, you'll find that it often only speaks of three souls, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. It doesn't mention Chaya and Yechidah in most prayers. In many texts, the Zohar just usually says that there's just Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. But then you go to the Arizal, and he talks about Chaya, Yechidah. So is it 5 or is it 3? Midrash Rabbah says 5. So actually that's also one thing that we're going to have to reconcile and make sense of. Why is it that certain texts only speak of 3 souls when you have 5? It's another big question. And related to that, Why is it that sometimes the terms don't line up? Sometimes you read the Zohar and you say, wait, the terms don't line up with the Arizal so much. So it's also really important to understand both and make sense of both. If a person's only studying Zohar and not Arizal, or studying just Arizal and not Zohar, things can actually get really confusing because the terms seemingly don't add up, don't match up always. So we're going to also have to explain that. How does the Zohar refer to the Chaya and Yechida? Because it generally only uses the terms Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. Okay, so that's another thing that we're going to do, solve that puzzle of reconciling different texts, Midrash, Zohar, Arizal. So here's one Zohar that talks about the three souls. And it says, Nishmata iu klila betlat dragin, then the soul, the neshama, has three parts. Ve'aldat tlat shman inun lenishmata, and that's why it has three names, nefesh, ruach, neshama. Right, so this Zohar, like many Zohar, says, your soul has three parts. And it says nefesh is the lowest one, like we already saw. Tata mikola ruach ikiyuma deshalta al nefesh. The ruach rules over the nefesh, and it's above it. Neshama rules over everything beneath it. So nefesh at the bottom, then ruach, then neshama. That's what the Zohar says. And it connects it to that flame. Ner Hashem nishmat adam. The Zohar says that the flame, if you look at a flame, there are three main colors in the flame. What are the colors of a flame? You see the yellow, white. What else? There's a blue. There's a nice thin blue. There's some red. So there's like the red, yellow, white, and there's the blue, and then there's the black. Right? So the Zohar says, like right around the wick is Nehora Ukma, the dark flame. Right? And then beyond that, the main part of it is the Nehora Chivara, the white flame, or yellow, reddish, orange. It produces like a whitish glow, right? Yellow glow. And then you have the thin sliver of blue, which the Zohar connects to Tchelet, the blue Tchelet that you have on tzitzit, and it calls it also Nehora Stima, that kind of like the most concealed one. You have to look very carefully to see a little thin sliver of blue. Scientifically, what's the difference between a yellow flame and a blue flame? Why is the candle why is it white or yellow, or your bonfire, your barbecue, it's usually, but on your gas stove, it's blue. What's the difference? Anybody remember high school science? Could be related to the fuel source, yes, but the main reason, like the one reason why is the one flame blue and the other flame yellow? Bonfire yellow, but your gas stove probably burns pretty blue. Why?
Spectrum of light.
Why?
Heat.
Temperature days.
Rain versus wood.
So the fuel source can make a difference, yeah. It does make a difference. But the reason that a blue flame is blue is because it's complete combustion. That means it's getting enough oxygen. It's fully satisfied, satiated with oxygen, so it burns blue, and it's really hot. A yellow flame is incomplete combustion, right? It's not getting enough oxygen. So it's a dirty flame. It produces carbon monoxide. It produces carbon soot, the black stuff, the char. A blue flame is clean. Blue flame produces nothing toxic. It's all just CO2 and H2O. Blue flame just produces carbon dioxide, which is not toxic, and water vapor. That's it. No smoke in a blue flame. So in a lab, we use a blue flame. In various industrial applications, you want a nice, hot, blue, clean flame. So natural gas burns blue from your gas stove because it's methane. And methane is a really small molecule. It's CH4. You guys remember organic chemistry a little bit? Organic 101. Methane is CH4, right? Ethane is 2 carbons. Methane is 1 carbon. Propane is 3 carbons. Guys, I gotta do some organic review. Meth, eth, prop, bute. No, you forgot all your organic chemistry? You guys got to come back to high school. Come into my class. So, methane is just one really small molecule, right? CH4. And that's why it doesn't need much oxygen to satisfy it, so it burns blue, it burns hot. Yellow flame, something like a bonfire wood, it actually has many different organic compounds burning, so it needs a lot more oxygen, so it's a yellow flame. Okay, but what does this all have to do with your soul? So the Zohar says your nefesh is the nehora ukma, the lowest, the black part of the flame, so that's your nefesh, and then the nehora chivara, the white, yellow glow, the main part of it is the ruach, And even in your body, as we'll see, the ruach is the main thing that's associated with all your major organs. And finally, the nehorastima, that tchelet, that little sliver of tchelet in the candle, is your neshama. Right? It's kind of like the highest level, your mental, your intellectual. Okay, so that's also connected to Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, adds further to the metaphor and the symbolism of the flame and the candle and the soul. And we're going to come back to the oxygen and the fire, because the fire also needs oxygen, right? Fire, no combustion without oxygen, just like you. So this metaphor actually goes very deep, and it's very scientifically precise. Interestingly enough, the same Zohar says in the following paragraph, Tachazeh, come and see, B'shata da'al Avram le'ara, when Avram first came to Israel, Torah says that le'ashem nira alav, that he built a mizbeach, and he sacrificed to the God, le'ashem nira alav, that appeared to him. And the word nir'ah also has the root ner, right? God appeared to him, and the Zohar says, v'kabil taman, and that's when he received his nefesh. Abraham received his new nefesh when he came to Israel. Before, he had his old nefesh. Now he comes to Israel, he receives a new nefesh, and he builds a mizbeach, the Zohar says, for that purpose, because now he has a nefesh specifically for that. And then the same chapter, it's chapter 12 of Bereshit, of Genesis, says, Levatar aloch v'naso nekba. Then it says Abraham just came to Israel, and seemingly a few verses later, he has to move again, and he goes down to the Negev. Why is he moving? You just got here, just settled in. And the Zohar says, what happened there? Kabil ruach. That's where he got his ruach. And again, he built a mizbeach and did sacrifices and offerings to Hashem. And finally, at the very end, he got his neshama. Again, he traveled again, same chapter in chapter 12. He moves a third time, ve'iven sham mizbeach leHashem, and he builds another mizbeach to God, dahi neshama, and he gets his neshama. So at 3 steps. Yeah.
At what point did he get the name changed?
This is before that, right? This is chapter 12. This is before the name change. Wait, so he's still Avram at this point. Yeah, this is when he's 75 years old, right? The Torah tells us explicitly he's 75. And he comes to Israel, he gets a nefesh, he doesn't stay much in where he was originally, he goes to the Negev, he gets his ruach, moves again, gets his neshama, and then the Zohar says, only now at this point, what do we read right after this? That Avram, not yet Avraham, goes down to Egypt. And the Zohar actually explicitly says, why does he go to Egypt now? He just got to Israel. Like, he just came to the Holy Land. Your promised land. God says, leave Haran, go to settle in Israel. And it's like he just got there, and he has to go to Egypt. So the Zohar says, why does he have to go to Egypt? He just got to Israel. The Zohar says, now he got his neshama, and he was ready for his next test. And he told God, okay, I'm ready for the next one. Okay, go to Egypt. That's the next phase. So now that he had his neshama, he could get the bigger test of going down to Egypt and dealing with all the challenges that he had to deal with over there.
Does this apply to people now? Like,
yes, also. Yep. Yeah, it could be, because we say, shonem makom, shonem mazal, you move to a different place, something draws you to a certain place, there's something spiritual happening. Everywhere you go in the world, there's a reason why you're going there. Right? God directs the footsteps of man, it says. So wherever you go, you need to go there. There's something waiting for you there. So Abraham gets his neshama and has to go straight to Egypt for his next major test. The Zohar elaborates again, just to finish off this passage, that nefesh is the bottom one and nourishes the body. Okay, so again, it's very deeply tied to the body. And then it says, once you rectify, levatar itakanta, once you've rectified your nefesh, you get your ruach. And then when you've rectified your ruach, you get your neshama. It's a 3-step process. You have all of them. They're all designated for you at birth, all 5. You start with your nefesh, and then when you've rectified your nefesh, you're now able to access your ruach powers. When you've rectified your ruach, you're now able to access your neshama powers. So you keep going. You ascend in this ladder, spiritual ladder. Ve'i tema, if you say the train dragin inun bepil, if you think that the nefesh and ruach are 2 separate souls, you're making a mistake. Lav achi, it's not so, because they're actually intertwined. Inun train bechibur achad. Your nefesh and ruach are actually deeply intertwined. Don't think that they're so separate. The nefesh is the part that just happens to never leave the body. But the ruach is also deeply intertwined with the nefesh. And when we get to the biology part, you'll see why. Because the nefesh is the blood, and the ruach is all the vital organs that the blood goes through and that purifies the blood and filters the blood and all these things. Your liver, your heart, your lungs, we're going to match it all up. So the nefesh and ruach, it's important to say this now, the Zohar is saying, don't separate between the nefesh and ruach. That's why it's ner Hashem, nishmat adam. The ner, nefesh ruach, is the candle. That's like the body, right? And then you have the nishmat adam, which is more like the higher spiritual, intellectual part. The ner stays together. Nun reish stays together. Back to the Midrash, Bereshit Rabbah. We go, the next one says, from in the name of Rabbi Meir, which is also appropriate because Rabbi Meir is the illuminator. Right? Meir means the illuminator. Rabbi Meir says, "Haneshama azo memala et kol haguf, uveshah she'adam yashen, I ola v'shoevet lo chaim milemala." When you are sleeping, one part of your soul stays in your body. Which part is that? Which part never leaves your body? The nefesh. The other parts of your soul, where do they go? They go on a journey at night. When you're sleeping, they go ola v'shoevet lo chaim milemala. Your other souls go and travel at night. 4 parts of your soul, the higher levels of the soul, they go up to the heavens and do all kinds of things, and that's why you're able to pick up information. Some people have prophetic dreams. Maybe you've had a deja vu. Where's that coming from? Sometimes telepathic things. Maybe your soul communicated with another soul at night. I can share many stories, I won't share now, but many stories of things that happened to me and to others of just like really strange dream phenomena. I've shared some before, actually. All kinds of things. I actually dreamt of my wife many years before we were even dating. I had a dream that we were married. And I wrote about it because I had a dream journal. I would record my dreams. I still have it. Later, when I was already with my wife, and I'm like, this is oddly familiar. Like, I dreamt this scene before. I'm certain I dreamt this. And if I go, so I went back, I took out that old box from years ago of my dream journals, started leafing through it. I'm like, I'm sure it was somewhere. I can find it. Found it. Actually described it. It's crazy. Showed it to her. Wow, crazy. Right? So you never know, right? These kinds of things happen. How's that possible? Because your soul is traveling, journeying at night, and you see things, right? You can get information about the future. You can get information about other people. And of course, if you get a more refined soul, the Gemara says that sleep dreams are a 60th of prophecy. So we all get it. It's just how often do you remember? If you write it down, you'll see it more because you just forget your dreams. But if you write them down as soon as you wake up, you'll notice dreams start coming true and you start to remember more prophetic dreams and more deja vus and things like that. And you have the physical evidence to prove it.
So I'm in medical school and one of the topics is pharmacology, so you go through kind of medications. Obviously, people who are on antidepressants or ADHD medication, that affects their brain and kind of the way they think.
Yeah.
So how does that affect with the trauma? Because kind of people who are on ADHD medication, it suppresses.
Yes, it's a huge problem. Anesthesia too. Anesthesia, when a person's on anesthetic, they don't dream, right? It's like you close your eyes, you open your eyes, 5 hours passed, a day passed, you don't know, you don't dream because it shuts down parts of your brain, so do certain drugs, and it's a huge problem. Yeah, absolutely. There's all kinds of conspiracy theories about it as well. You know, fluoride in the water that affects your pineal gland, it's true. But like fluoride, it's been shown that scientifically, fluoride does build up in the pineal gland. The pineal gland puts you to sleep. It releases melatonin, possibly even DMT, because DMT and melatonin actually have almost the same structure chemically. Again, you can do the organic chemistry homework after. You look up the structure of melatonin and DMT, it's almost the same. It's made from the same amino acids. So is there an effect from things like fluoride? If people are drinking fluoride, does it build up in the pineal gland? Does it affect your sleep? Does it affect your dreaming? Does it suppress certain spiritual things? For sure, drugs, ADHD, antidepressants, what kind of effect do they have on the brain? Definitely has an effect. Point is that when you sleep, 4 of your 5 souls go up to heaven, and they actually, the Midrash says that they draw, sho'evet lo chaim milemala. They actually draw life for you. This is important, and this is actually a scientific fact, that not sleeping can be fatal. You have to sleep, and you have to dream. Actually, if you don't REM dream, it can be fatal after a while. You have to dream. or the brain will not work. The body will shut down. And it's still a mystery. It's one of these big scientific mysteries. We still don't know 100% why we even need to sleep. Right? Biology still can't really explain. From an evolutionary perspective, it makes no sense. Why would you make yourself completely inactive for a third of your life and make yourself vulnerable and exposed? It just makes no sense. You're completely defenseless when you sleep. From an evolutionary perspective, it makes no sense. You would think it would have been gone a long time ago. So biology cannot explain why you sleep, and furthermore, we can't explain why you dream. Why dream? What's causing it? Why is it happening? Why do we need to dream? And why is it that if you don't dream, if you don't go into REM sleep at least a little bit every now and then, it will actually potentially kill a person? And the Midrash already knows this secret 1,500, 2,000 years ago, that your soul you need to sleep so that your soul goes up and draws down life for you. And as that's happening, you're dreaming. And even the Gemara says this. The Gemara in Masechet Brachot actually says an amazing insight. How do you say healing in Hebrew? To heal internally by yourself. Not refuah. Refuah is somebody heals you. Refuah is a doctor treats you. But how do you call it yourself? What's the English word for this? Just to heal your body healing itself. There's a difference between somebody healing you and you healing yourself. What's the word for healing yourself in Hebrew? Hebrew speakers? Achlama, right? Achlama. Refuah is somebody heals you. Achlama, really, that's like a rofeh. Achlama is your body heals itself. So the Gemara says the root of achlama, of healing, is chalom, dreaming. You need to dream to stay alive, for your body to regenerate and recover. And today it's a scientific fact. It's an amazing thing that the Gemara is saying. And it's related to actually Rosh Hashanah, because the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Shlosha tzrichim rachamim. There's 3 things that you need to pray for a lot. You really need to pour your heart out for. Deep prayer. What do you always need to pray for? 3 things. You might think the Gemara says, your spouse, your kids, your family, your parents, health. No. The Gemara says the 3 things that you need to pray for always is Melech Tov, that there's a good king, there's a good government. Because we know what happens when you have a bad government in charge. You have to pray for a good government always. And then Shana Tova, you want to have a good year, you want to have good time. How we all waste time. We want to make sure that we have good use of our time, that we don't waste time. And the 3rd thing that you must always pray for, Chalom Tov, that you have a good dream, that you have good dreams. And the proof it brings, we're not going to go through this Gemara, but it brings a proof for each one. And the proof for how do you know that you have to pray for a Chalom Tov? Because it says in Yeshayahu, V'tachalimeni v'techayeni. Because Achlama, the root of healing and life, is dreaming. How do you know if your dream is good? You mean like in terms of interpreting your dream? As a general rule, you should assume all your dreams are good. Right? There is a class on YouTube that I gave many years ago on Jewish dream interpretation, and the rule is whatever dream you have, assume it's good and interpret it in a good way. If you interpret it good, it's going to be good. Every dream goes, the Gemara says, according to its interpretation. So even the most frightening dream, you got to interpret it in a positive way. And you should the Gemara says, you should share your dream with somebody who's a good friend of yours, so that they will give you always a positive interpretation of it. No matter how frightening and nightmarish it is, it's good. It's positive, right? No matter what. Everything is always interpret a dream for a positive way, and that's how it'll come true in the positive way as well. And the Zohar says when your soul goes up to the heavens, when you sleep, Beshata divnei nasha, when people, Naim be'alse, go to lie down in their beds, Nafka nafshe, so again your soul goes up. And what does it do up in the heavens? It's going to bear witness to everything al kol ma avad bechol yoma, on everything that it did that day. It's uploading today's events to the main server in the heavens. Every day, at the end of the day, you got to clear your brain. And again, this is also a scientific fact. Today we know that while you sleep, your brain cleans itself up. It does some defragging. It stores memories. It does some reconciling different pieces of information. It deletes what's not necessary, things that I need to forget. stores what I need to keep. Right? It does all that stuff, cleaning up the RAM in your brain, the hard drives and all that stuff. There's a question if it's even in your brain. Where is the data being stored? There is a theory from Dr. Stuart Hameroff and Roger Penrose, Sir Roger Penrose, who also won a Nobel Prize a few years ago, that your brain is a quantum computer. And it doesn't store your information in your brain because we've never actually found a hard drive in your brain. We used to think, neurologists used to think that there's one part of your brain, like in a computer, here, it's the hard drive, that's where all your data is. But such a thing has not been found. The hippocampus maybe is involved in some memory, storing, processing information, whatever, but it's not an actual hard drive. Where are your memories? So according to this theory, your memories are in the universe at large, that the fabric of space can actually store all your information, and your brain is just a receiver that's downloading that information.
There's also the thing that memory is in your blood because organ
Also.
donors receive the memories of their...
There's also that memories in water, right? You've all heard of water memory. It was in Frozen 2. Your kids watch Frozen 2. The whole theme of that movie was that there's memories in water. Right? Elsa is... You guys don't know Frozen? It's very Kabbalistic. Come on. Elsa is able to extract memories from water. Right? So that's a very Kabbalistic thing. I wrote about it in my first book, actually, of water memory and the science behind it. So yeah, there could be information from a scientific perspective, from a quantum physics perspective, information could be stored anywhere. So yeah, water could have memories. Even what seems like empty space, the fabric of space-time, can contain information. And so Dr. Hameroff says that could explain scientifically reincarnation, because the body dies. Okay, so what? The mind doesn't die. The information's not gone, because it was never in the brain to begin with. The brain can decompose. That information can then just be downloaded into another body. And it can explain telepathy, and it can explain all kinds of extra senses. It can explain prophecy, because you're drawing information from the universe at large, which is like a big server of information. So when you go to sleep, the Zohar says, you are uploading all your day's events to the heavens. Your soul bears witness to everything that happened on earth that day for you. And there's a verse in Yeshayahu to prove it, where it says, Nafshi iviticha balayla. It's almost like, I yearn for my soul at night. That's what the words are saying. What do you mean I yearn for my soul at night? Because my soul is like traveling, it's going somewhere, it's going up to the heavens. So the body yearns for the soul at night. In summary, the nefesh stays in the body, the ruach, neshama, and perhaps other levels go up and are traveling and are doing things and are uploading information, and maybe you can actually pick up some information by accident, and that's why the Gemara says sleep is a 60th, or dreaming is a 60th of prophecy. And sleep is a 60th of death, that same Gemara says. And what happens when you wake up? The Arizal says, right when you wake up, Knisat ruach o neshama be'adam hi balayla be'akitzo mishnato. When you wake up from your sleep, your neshama, your ruach and neshama come right back into you. And so think about when you wake up, all that, the soul's coming back into you, settling into your brain again. And that's why some of the most intense dreams that you have happen right before you wake up. Okay? You have some really powerful dream and you wake up, because it's all coming to you as the ruach and neshama in those minutes or seconds as before you wake up. It's all coming, and it's like a highlight reel of things, and to you it might feel like a month, a week, a day, but it could have just been a few seconds in your brain right before you woke up. And that's why Chazal say that the most powerful dreams are like Shabbat morning dreams. In the morning, right when you wake up, are really powerful dreams in general. Because at night, in the first half of the night, the Sitra Achra is still pretty strong out there. So you might have like the nightmares that you have in the first half of the night, God forbid, hopefully you don't have, but they're usually like just Sitra Achra messing with you. And it could also be, Chazal say, related to the food that you ate. Whatever it is that you ate might influence your dreams in the first half of the night. And other things, the day's events, stress, this, that. But then closer to the morning, when all that junk has already been, we've gone through it, the Sitra Achra is gone, and in the morning, which is already a time of more chesed, right before you wake up, that's when you might be able to get something, a bit of prophetic insight, as your soul re-enters your body. And on Shabbat, it's even more powerful. Why? What's on Shabbat? On Shabbat, you have an extra nefesh. You have an extra soul on Shabbat. So it's all the more powerful on Shabbat and Yom Tov and so on. The Midrash continues. Rabbi Levi b'shem Rabbi Chanina amar, al kol neshima u'neshima she'adam noshem, for every breath that you breathe, each and every breath, tzarich lekales laboreh, you have to praise, thank God, praise God, because it says at the end of Tehillim, what's the last verse in Tehillim? Kol haneshama hallelujah, hallelujah. It says it twice at the end. That's how the Tehillim finishes. Why? The Gemara, the Midrash says here, don't say kol haneshama, say kol haneshima hallelujah. Right? With each breath, you should praise your Creator. Neshama, neshima, your soul, your breath. So what's the connection now between breathing and your soul? Breathing is fundamental to your soul. The soul is what allows you to breathe to begin with. Otherwise, the body is just a hunk of material. The soul leaves the body stops breathing. The soul is causing the body to breathe, and the breath keeps the soul glued to the body. No breath, the soul leaves. And you need to breathe, not to stay alive, but also breathing is tied to every aspect of your health. It's not just staying alive. It's the oxygen that you breathe. Your blood picks it up, delivers it to every part, every cell of your body, just about. The oxygen goes into your mitochondria. It's used to make your energy. That's how your ATP energy is made. Most of it, not all of it, most of it needs oxygen. Oxidative phosphorylation, back to high school. So you need oxygen to actually produce energy. You need oxygen to keep you alive, and the way you breathe impacts every aspect of your health. There's actually a book about this called Breath. I think the author's James Nestor, I think. Is that right? James Nestor? Yeah, James Nestor. Very fascinating book. Talks about how your breathing affects every aspect of your health. It affects even how many cavities you get, your jaw structure, your nose shape, like everything, your body, like every aspect of your body, your posture, how you walk, everything is connected to breath. And a lot of people actually don't breathe properly. Are you breathing now? Take a deep breath. Make sure. A lot of people hold their breath. They don't even realize it. You got to make sure that you're always breathing, and preferably through the nose, in through the nose, and breathing regularly, consistently, making sure your body's oxygenated. It impacts every aspect of your health. And not just that, also today breath work has become very popular, and breath work can be incredibly powerful. People can have almost psychedelic experiences through, almost like taking a drug. Right? Just through breathing, you can have an out-of-body experience. You can ascend to very high levels, get very powerful downloads of information, healing, just through various breath mechanisms of breath control. An amazing thing. And actually the Rambam specifically mentions breath work as something you should do. It's a mitzvah. The Rambam says that, not just the Rambam says, Chazal say that you have to take care of your health. It's a mitzvah to be healthy. I think we're going to do a class on this maybe in the new year, New Year's resolutions. It's an actual mitzvah to be healthy, to take care of your body. And the Chazal say it based on the pasuk, "V'nishmartem meod lenafshotechem." Remember, your nefesh is connected to your body, never leaves your body. So when the Torah says you should guard your nefesh really carefully, oh, what's nefesh? That's intertwined with the guf, that's the body. We have to take care of our bodies. The Rambam says it's a mitzvah to take care of your body. You have to exercise. He actually lists, he says you have to do mishak kadur, he says, ball games, boxing, wrestling, and then he says, atzirat neshima, different breathing techniques. The Rambam says it's a mitzvah to do these things. And he even goes on to say, because there were even critics back then, that anybody who tells you that this is bittul Torah is a fool. Because the wise understand how important this is. And it's a bona fide mitzvah. So when you hit the gym and you lift weights, it's like learning a daf of Gemara. I'm going to get excommunicated for saying that. You're going to see. The next cherem is going to be, Palvanov said, not this. So, but that's the reality. The Rambam will agree with me. The Rambam specifically says to play mischak kadul. So if you're going to play a game of soccer, don't think it's a waste of time. It's not. The Rambam says it's not bittul Torah to play soccer. It's a fulfillment of a mitzvah to take care of your body and to stay healthy and to keep your soul attached to your body. Because otherwise you're just hastening your death. It's carelessness that's going to lead to an untimely death. It's like slow suicide. A lot of people get into a life funk where they're slowly committing suicide. And we know that suicide is forbidden. People who commit suicide slowly through various unhealthy practices. Right? So it's really important to remember that. You cannot have a healthy soul without a healthy body. If the vessel's contaminated, obviously the goods inside will be contaminated also. Can't have a healthy soul without a healthy body. It's important to remember that. You have to take care of your health as much as possible. All of that is connected to your breathing, your health. You have to do all these things. Of course, when you start exercising, you start breathing more. So you can see how everything's connected. And by the way, we talked about the soul and the candle connection and the flame. From a chemical perspective, the chemical equation for combustion and the chemical equation for you breathing, for cellular respiration, is exactly the same. We always say, like, if you take sugar, C6H12O6, glucose, plus O2, makes CO2 and H2O, right? We've all seen this equation, hopefully at some point in our lives. C6H12O6 is glucose, plus you need 6 oxygens to balance the equation, and it makes 6 CO2, 6 carbon dioxide, and 6 H2O. That's the equation for combustion, for burning sugar. You take a tablespoon of sugar and you burn it, that's the equation for complete combustion. That's the same exact equation for cellular respiration, for how sugar is digested in your body. It's the exact same chemical equation. It's not even a little bit different. It's exactly the same.
That's how they measure calories. They burn.
Right. Exactly. You are literally like a combustion engine. It's the same chemical equation. You need oxygen to burn energy and keeps it. So it's not just a metaphor. It's like scientific fact. You are basically a candle. There's practically nothing chemically different between the candle burning and you burning. It's the same thing. It's the same chemical equation. Okay? The food you eat, you're burning the same way the candle burns let's say olive oil. Same thing. You eat olive oil, same thing. Just in your body, it's a little more complicated of how the fats are broken down and blah, blah, blah. But practically, the overall chemical equation is identical. So you are quite literally a candle burning. When does all this happen? Let's get more Arizal now. Let's go more Kabbalistic. Shara Gilgulim, the Gate of Reincarnation, one of the most popular of the Arizal's teachings, of course written by Rav Chaim Vital. The Arizal himself didn't write it. Rav Chaim Vital wrote it, one of his students. Right at the beginning, he says, "Ina be'et shenolad gufa adam," when the body of a person is born, ve'yotze le'avir ha'olam, and enters the physical world, the air of the world, nichneset bo ha'nefesh shelo. From that first breath, the baby has its nefesh. The truth is, the nefesh is already trickling in as the baby is growing in the womb. Otherwise, it wouldn't grow. What's driving the baby's growth is an infusion of nefesh. Otherwise, it just wouldn't grow. Yeah, it's another scientific mystery. We do not know how embryology actually works. We can't explain how sperm meets egg and you have this undifferentiated mass. The cells start dividing. It's a ball of identical cells, and then it differentiates into all these different organs and whatever. This becomes fingers, this becomes toes, this becomes eyes. We don't know how that happens. Right? We can see certain genes, this gene, that gene. Okay, fine. But how? Like, who's to say that this turns on, this is activated, that goes here, that goes there, this gene is turned off, this gene's turned on, epigenetic patterns, we have no idea. Nobody knows how that works. And it works because there's an infusion of soul. That's what's really driving that mass of material to differentiate. But when the baby is born, now it has a full nefesh, meaning the final bit that it needs to be independently alive, separate from its mother, comes in with its first breath at birth. Now the baby has a complete nefesh. Makes sense, it's alive, like an animal. It's a fully living thing, it has a nefesh. And then what? So now you're growing, baby's growing, it's got a nefesh. If the deeds are kosher and the person is doing what they need to do, then the ruach will enter. Betashlum, meaning, again, as the baby is growing, it's now receiving a little bit of ruach. That's what's allowing it to mature and develop, and its brain is growing. And when can the ruach be fulfilled? What do you think?
13.
Good, 13. The Shnat HaShalosh Esrei. At bar bat mitzvah, right? That's the deeper meaning of bar bat mitzvah. Why bar mitzvah at 13, bat mitzvah at 12? Of course, there's a connection to puberty and all that maturity, but why does that happen? What triggers, again, another mystery, what triggers puberty in the body? Again, we don't know. Why suddenly, and for every person it's a little bit different, right? Why suddenly all these hormones start to come out and all the organs start to change and the this and the that? What's triggering that? We don't know. From a spiritual perspective, it's the infusion of the ruach. The infusion of ruach is causing that person to mature in that way. Okay? And it's affecting their organs, as we shall see, and their hormones and all that. And the earliest that you can get your full ruach potential is 13 for a boy, 12 for a girl. So bar bat mitzvah. If you then continue, as you grow, and you keep doing what you need to do, me'az ve'elech nichnaset bo neshama, and again, then you start getting some of your neshama in your teens. And when is the tashlum of the neshama? When is it now full in your body, potentially?
20.
At 20. At age 20, you are halachically a full adult. Not at 13, 12. So sometimes you hear people say, oh, like, bar mitzvah, mazal tov, you're a man now. Yeah, not really. You're right. A 13-year-old is still a kid for most aspects of life, right? When are you an adult? Legally you might be an adult at 18, but halachically you're not really fully an adult until you're 20. That's why the Torah says that people that were counted for the census, kitisa, right? 20. People who went to the army, 20. You see that number over and over again. The Midrash says, why 20? Because Adam and Eve were created as 20-year-olds. They were created in the form of 20-year-olds. And based on that, there's at least one understanding that at the resurrection of the dead in the future, how old will you be when you resurrect? So a person died when they were, let's say, 120. So do you resurrect as a 120-year-old? You resurrect, according to one opinion, as a 20-year-old. As you're going back to the Garden of Eden. Everybody's going to be like Adam and Eve, like perpetual 20-year-olds. It's nice, no? Forever 21. That's the overall. So baby's born, it has nefesh, it starts getting ruach, and then in the teens it has the ruach, but it still doesn't have the full neshama. And remember, neshama is the brain. It's the prefrontal cortex, it's decision making. That's why teens are terrible at making decisions, no foresight, no planning, and a lot of emotional issues because the ruach is connected to the internal organs, the heart, and a lot of emotions, right? Nefesh just keeps you alive. It's all like desire, basic desire. That's why a baby is all like an animal. It's all desire. Babies, little children, entirely a selfish creature. Right? Almost entirely. And as they grow, they become less and less selfish as the ruach comes in. The older they get, they're able to understand more, they mature more. By 20, possibly a person can have the full neshama, full developed brain. But we know scientifically that the brain can continue to develop into late 20s, even up to 30. Still growing, still developing, everybody's different. Everybody has a different point of entering puberty, different stages in brain development. But what is spiritually causing this? Nefesh, ruach, neshama. Now, what if a person is not doing what they're supposed to be doing? Im lo tiken et haruach legamre, lo tekanes bo haneshama. So if a person has not rectified their ruach, then they're not going to get access to their neshama. They have a neshama. Everybody has one. It's not a question of having it. It's a question of being able to tap into it and access it and use it. So a person might be stuck in nefesh their whole life, in a material existence, selfish, only thinking about their physical needs, like a little child, like an animal, without ever having rectified nefesh that never really even gets to ruach. And a person can be stuck in ruach for much of their life, struggling always with all kinds of emotional issues, with all kinds of drama, with anger and with depression and anxiety and stress and all these ruach-related, heart-related phenomena. That's actually a lot of people, which is why heart disease is so common. It's because our organs are intertwined with our souls. Right? We're going to see that now. Why is there so much heart disease? Why are there so many liver problems and kidney problems? Why these organs have all the issues? Neshama is already the next level, right? People who are able to now overcome their ruach, and the neshama dominates, more intellectual, more spiritual, mental. So the Zohar says, Tachazeh, Barnash Kadid Yalid. So the Zohar starts by saying the same thing that the Arizal was saying. It's the other way. The Arizal was saying what the Zohar was saying. The Zohar came first. When a person's born, Yavin le nafsha, he just gets a nefesh, misitra de ve'ira. He gets an animal soul. When a person's born, they have an animal type of nefesh. And then, what brings him that, the Zohar adds, what brings you your nefesh is the Ofanei HaKodesh, right? The angel, the type of angel called the Ofanei HaKodesh. Zachai yatir, if he merits further, Yavin le rucha, then he gets the ruach, misitra de chayot HaKodesh. Then the Chayot HaKodesh, another class of angels, bring him his ruach. Zachai yatir, if he further merits, he gets his neshama, misitra de kusaya, from the very throne of God. God gives you from beneath his throne your neshama. Utlat ilain, and these three, nefesh, ruach, neshama, they are like inun, ama, eved, v'shifcha. They're like a servant, a maid servant, male servant, like a servant, basically. For the king, for the king's daughter. That's what the Zohar says. The nefesh, ruach, neshama are like low level. They're like servants of the king's daughter. If you then further purify yourself, yavin le nafsha be'or chatzilut. If you go even higher, then you get something called nefesh de atzilut, a very, very high level soul. You remember what atzilut is? Remember, there's olamot. There's in Kabbalah the concept of dimensions, olamot. What's the lowest olam? Asiya. Olam Asiya is the world that we're in, the physical world. Asiya is la'asot, is action, the world of action. Above that is Yetzira. Olam Yetzira, the world of formation, the world of spirits, the world of angels, all that stuff. And above that, Bria, the world of creation, the very fabric of the universe, the coding, the matrix code that's running through the universe, the letters, the numbers, the gematrias, all that. And then above that is Atzilut, which is pure divine emanation. And then above that, another term for it, it's true. Right, one more thing before Ein Sof. Yeah, what corresponds to Keter? It's called Adam Kadmon.
Yeah.
Right? The highest universe is called Adam Kadmon. Right? Good. And then the Ein Sof. So really 5. And again, you hear of 4 universes. And the 5th is like Adam Kadmon sometimes is mentioned. But you always hear about Atzilut Bria Abia, Atzilut Bria Yetzira Asiya. But then there is a 5th. There's an Adam Kadmon. Just like the soul. There's 4 souls mentioned in the Torah. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya. And there's a 5th Yechidah that comes later in Tehillim. So you get your Neshama. Then if you further merit, you get the Nefesh de Atzilut. Okay. The highest, a nefesh corresponding to the divine emanation. So what is this nefesh de atzilut though? Where did that term come from? I thought nefesh is like a low-level animal soul.
It's the lowest of the high.
Yes. And the Zohar, this is where the Zohar actually says, what do we call this one? If nefesh, ruach, and neshama correspond to the ama, eved, and shifcha, like the maid and the slave and that, what do we call the nefesh de atzilut? That's called Bat Yechida. She is the king's sole daughter, right? Daddy's little girl. So now you see where the Zohar introduces the term Yechida. It's there in the Zohar. You just have to read it right. Because the Zohar usually will say in many passages, there's 3 parts to the soul. Nefesh, ruach, neshama, nefesh, ruach, neshama, nefesh. And it doesn't say there's 5 parts. But then it'll say, but there is a higher soul, nefesh de atzilut, and that's the Bat Yechida. And she is called the Bat Melech, the daughter of the king. And if you further Zachai yatir, you can go even higher. You get ruach de atzilut, ve'ikrei ben lekut shabrichu. A person becomes a son of God at that point. A person who's on that level is called Ben lekut shabrichu, the son of God, as it says in Dvarim, Banim atem leHashem Elohechem. God tells us, Moshe says explicitly in the Torah, you are all children of God. So there's one religion out there that thinks one person's the son of God. Every member of Israel is a son or daughter of God. Right? That's what the early Christians misunderstood, a major error that they made because of confusion with Greco-Roman paganism, of Hercules being son, of all these heroes, of demigods in Greek myth. So these Gentile Christians took that idea and totally misunderstood it and turned it into something pagan and idolatrous. The Torah says that each and every one of you, banim atem le'Hashem Elohechem, you are all children of God. Throughout Tanakh, God refers to various people as my son. God calls Shlomo, he is my son and I will be his father. I will be like a father, he's my son. So we're all sons of God. So the Zohar is saying, how do you become a son of God? How do we reach that level of being worthy of that title when you're at that level, high up level, on the Yechidah level? When you've rectified your Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechidah, when you're at the highest level, you now are worthy of the title of a son of God. Right? Ben Lekuchabi, or a daughter of God. And the Zohar actually says this is the deeper meaning of a very puzzling mitzvah in the Torah, which is shocking, and a lot of Torah critics point out it's not that shocking. People make it a lot more shocking than it is. When you consider the context that the Torah is 3,500 years old, back then it wasn't that shocking. But today it's shocking for our 21st century mind, because the Torah says, Ki imkor ish et bito le'ama. A man can sell his daughter to be a maid for somebody else. That's the language of the Torah in Shmot, Exodus 21. Ki imkor ish et bito le'ama, lo tetzeh ketzet avadim. You can sell your daughter to be a servant to another family, but she cannot be like a slave, right? Lo tetzeh ketzet avadim. She should not be treated like a slave. She's not a slave. But a father back then could basically have his daughter employed to work for another family. And the idea is that she could also then get a shidduch there. She'll get to know the family. They'll like her. She'll like them. And she'll marry one of the boys in that family and live happily ever after. The idea was it was for the daughter's own benefit to arrange for her that situation where she can work, she can learn about this family. It's a good family, so she can be there. And when the Torah says to sell, people get like worked up about it. Like, oh, what do you mean to sell your daughter? It doesn't mean like to sell her like on the marketplace. It means that her labor, she's going to be employed, meaning she's not going to work for free. Right? She's going to work for this family, and the family will pay for it, so that she shall not be treated like a slave. That's what the Torah is saying. Lo tetzeh ketzet avadim. She shouldn't be treated like a slave. She's an employee of that family, and hopefully she'll join that family because it's a good family, and she'll marry into that family. That's the idea. But the Zohar is saying, what is the deeper meaning of this mitzvah here in the Torah? That person, it's like God selling his daughter, the soul. God is taking the soul, Bat Melech, his own, as if, metaphorically, God is taking his own daughter and sending her down into this world to do work, to be a worker. But not like a slave, a worker that gets the reward. That you're working and you earn your reward. And ultimately it's for your soul's own benefit. So God is like the one selling his daughter, the Bat Melech is the soul, into this world, into this physical world, to work and earn your reward. Make sense? Okay, so now we're going to put it all together. Understanding this whole thing, we have 5 souls, and we have 5 olamot. What else do we have 5? 5 books of the Torah. Another important question, why is the Torah 5 books? Why not just 1 book? 1 book, Chumash, whatever. Why call it a Chumash? Just make it a one thing. 1 book. It's 1 author. 1 book. Why 5 books? You ever think about that? We need 5. It doesn't make sense. Why? So the 5 books correspond to the 5 souls and correspond to the 5 worlds, which correspond to the Sefirot, which are the 10 Sefirot are rectified as 5 partsufim. But ultimately, where does all that come from? What is the initial 5? What is it?
You came out with that.
Exactly. Hashem. Yeah, it's God's name. Hashem, Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Right? God's name is 4 letters, and on the Yud there's a crown. Right? There's a little tag, a crown on the top of the Yud. So there's 5 parts to God's name, 4 letters, and the more hidden, esoteric 5th on the top of the Yud. And you'll notice how all these things have that exact same formula, that exact same pattern of 4 explicit ones and 1 hidden one. So the souls, you have 4 souls mentioned in Chumash. The 5th, the Yechidah, is not mentioned. The highest one, the most sublime, the most esoteric, is hidden. It's King David that tells us about it in Tehillim. Same thing with the Chumash itself. You have 4 books from Shmot to Dvarim, which are all about Israel. And then you have 1 different book, Bereshit, the most esoteric, the most sublime, full of secrets. That's not even about Israel. Why is it even there, right? Very famous Rashi. Why does the Torah even start with Bereshit? The Torah should have started with Achodesh Hazeh, the first mitzvah in Egypt that God came. The Torah is the book of laws. It's Torah. So why do I care about Bereshit? It doesn't have any explicit mitzvot for us. The mitzvot were given to us at Sinai. Should have started at Sinai and go from there. So you have Bereshit that's distinct from the other books. It's actually very deep. So if you actually look at Hashem's name, the crown of the Yud is Bereshit, the most esoteric, the most sublime, and then Shmot is the Yud. And then Vayikra is the Hey, and then the Vav is Bamidbar, and then the Hey is Dvarim. And you have a repetition there, because you have a Hey and a Hey. You have 2 Heys. And what's the 5th book called? Mishnah Torah, the repetition of the Torah, because Deuteronomy meaning repetition, because it repeats and summarizes. It's like the Hey, we already had a Hey. It's another Hey. Just like God's name has a repetition, has a Hey, the Torah has a repetition itself, with new things, obviously. But it's called Deuteronomy or Mishnah Torah because it's a repetition of, and it's kind of almost like a summary of. Again, you see that model. So Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Yud in the top, the crown of the Yud is the Yechidah. And then you go from there, down. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. The final Hey corresponding to the lowest nefesh, corresponding to Malchut at the very bottom. So the Arizal says also at the beginning of Sha'ar Gilgulim, that a person, Nodaki ha'adam mekasher kol daled olamot abiyah. A person is intertwined with all 4 worlds of Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah. V'lachen be'echechu sheyu bo chalakim mikol ha'arba olamot. That a person has parts of all the 4 olamot. What are the chalakim? Nikra b'shem echad min ha'chamisha shmot anizkerot shehem naran chai. The 5 levels of the soul, which are given by the acronym naran chai, nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechidah, correspond to the 5 universes. So the nefesh, he says, first you have to rectify a nefesh de asiyah. First you have to rectify the nefesh that corresponds to the lower world of asiyah. Then you rectify the ruach in yetzirah, and then the neshama of bria, and then you keep going, the chaya corresponding to atzilut, and yechidah corresponding to adam kadmon. So, putting it all together, how does this link up to our body? Nefesh at the bottom corresponds to Olam Asiyah, the world of action, to the Sefirah of Malchut in the Sefirot, right? 10 Sefirot, Malchut at the bottom. And that corresponds to the blood. And it also corresponds not just the blood, but the body itself, because we're told that the nefesh is intertwined with the guf and remains in the guf, even after a person dies. So that the nefesh, there's a residual nefesh in the guf until the body is decomposed. So it's in the blood and it's in your flesh, in your meat, in the heaviest kind of part of you, which is your muscles. And both are red. Why are both red? What makes it red? Oxygen. Right, iron oxide. Right, iron oxide is red. It's the oxygen that binds iron. Iron is what carries oxygen throughout your body. When you breathe oxygen, it goes into your bloodstream. It's iron in hemoglobin that's binding oxygen, and it's red like Mars. Mars is red because of iron oxide. And your muscles have myoglobin. Your blood has hemoglobin, and your muscles have something almost very similar, myoglobin. It's binding oxygen. It's red. So all that red stuff that's binding oxygen is nefesh. And again, you see the connection of breathing, oxygen, soul. And it's iron. I've spoken about this before. One of my favorite Torah science things. Can't say it enough times. Iron is element 26 on the periodic table. The element Yud He Vav He, element 26, right? God's name is 26. And it happens to be iron. Iron's the most stable atom in the universe, most stable nucleus. 26 protons, perfect number. And it's the most abundant metal in the universe. And it's God's element, right? It's God's metal. And it's what's in your bloodstream, in your muscles, binding oxygen, keeping you alive. It's dafka iron, barzel. And the Kabbalists say, what's barzel? Iron in Hebrew. Bilha, Rachel, Zilpa, Leah, barzel. The mothers of Israel. Okay. This is God's element, 26. So it's dafka oxygen, iron that binds your oxygen, that makes your blood red. That's keeping your nefesh in your goof. Right. So that's that. Then you have ruach, which, as the Zohar says, is intertwined with nefesh. The Zohar says, do not make the mistake of thinking that ruach is entirely separated from nefesh. It's not separated. It's higher. It's able to move around more, like a wind, like a spirit, but it's intertwined with the nefesh, with the body. It's in the body. So how do the organs line up? Ruach is the next 6 Sefirot, right? What's called Zeir and Pin. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzah, Hod, Yesod, right? That corresponds to Olam HaYetzirah, and that corresponds to Ruach. That's that big portion of the Sefirot. How does the Ruach run parallel to the organs of your body? What do you have? What are your major organs? What do you have? The organs where the blood is coursing through. Heart, liver, lungs, kidneys. At any given time, something like a quarter of your blood is in your kidneys, being processed by your kidneys. Kabbalistically, what are the kidneys in the Sefirot always referred to as? Klayot is their name, and we say God is bochen klayot. God examines our kidneys. But on the Sefirot chart, the two kidneys are always Netzach and Hod. Netzach and Hod. So that's your kidneys. Really important. Really, we need a separate class for each of these things, but just to see the big picture. And then you have, what else do you have? You have the kidneys. The blood, also a lot of blood is going through your liver. The liver is the largest internal organ, the biggest organ. The liver has like 300 functions, keeps you alive. That's why it's called the liver. Keeps you living. Yeah, liver. It's a liver, it keeps you alive. It's the biggest organ in your body. So which sefirah does that correspond to? It's on your right side, right? The liver is on your right side. What's on the right side of the sefirot? In the Zeir and Pin, the right side is Chesed. And Chesed is also called, what do we call it? Right. Lecha Hashem Agdula ve'agvura ve'atiferet ve'anetzach ve'od kichol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, right? Hagdula. In the early Kabbalistic text, Chesed is always called Gedula. The biggest organ in your body, right, is the liver that keeps you alive, that purifies you, that processes all the alcohol and all the drugs and all the damage you do to your own body. Remember this whole slow suicide we talked about? So the liver is what's keeping you going and purifying you. That's the place of chesed. It's on the right side, just like chesed's on the right. And again, blood is constantly going through it. The liver's interacting with the blood, nefesh, constantly. Nefesh and ruach are intertwined. The liver is purifying the blood all the time. And not just purifying it, but it's a relay between your digestive system and is bringing cholesterol into your blood and is breaking down dead blood cells and then releasing them through the bile into your intestines to be excreted. So very fundamental to your biology and to your blood is the liver. So the kidneys are purifying the blood of metabolic waste. The liver is purifying the blood of all kinds of other things and is like a relay between the digestive system and the bloodstream. What else? So we have Netzahod and Chesed. What's on the Gvura side? What's on the left side that's associated with your blood? What's purifying your blood on the left? The spleen. You have a spleen. A lot of people forget about the spleen, Tchol in Hebrew, which also very important, has various immune functions, is a blood reserve also. If a person's like hemorrhaging blood, God forbid, it's the spleen serves as a blood reserve. So that's Gvura. That's what you need if, God forbid, there's an injury and a person's losing blood, the spleen kicks in. That's Gvura, that's Din. That's the severity side. And it's involved with the immune system and with protecting you, guarding you from threats and things like that, external threats. So the spleen on the left, just like Gvura is on the left. And then you have in the middle, in the center, Tiferet, which is always the heart. Tiferet is the one sefirah which is intertwined with all the other sefirot. It's the only one that has a path to all the other sefirot. Tiferet is the most important one. It's just like the heart is intertwined with every part of your body. It's It's really the only thing, the only organ that's interconnected through veins and arteries and arterioles and capillaries to every part of your body is your heart. That's Tiferet. And the heart works together with the lungs. They're not separate, you can't separate them, right? It's the cardiopulmonary system. The lungs bring in the oxygen, right? The heart sends the blood there, picks up the oxygen back to the heart, to the body, right? You remember the circulation? To the right atrium, to the right ventricle, to the lungs, pick up oxygen, get rid of CO2, come back to the heart. Left atrium, left ventricle, out to the body through the aorta. So working together. So Tiferet is the heart and lungs, that pulmonary system that's working together. And also the left and right lungs themselves correspond to Gvura and Chesed. So the right lung, which is the bigger one in the sense that it has 3 lobes, is Chesed. And the left lung, which only has 2 lobes, is Gvura, right? Left side, right side. So you can see this divine anatomy of the human body. So that's all Ruach, which is intertwined with Nefesh. The parts of the organs, internal organs, that the vital ones that interact with your blood constantly and purify it and clean it and refresh it and bring the oxygen, get rid of the carbon dioxide, all that stuff. Those are the main organs. That's Ruach, intertwined with Nefesh, like the Zohar says. And then the neshama is in your brain, like we already said. And, we forgot one. What about Yesod? Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod. What's Yesod?
Reproductive.
Yesod's always the reproductive organ. It's the place of reproduction. Another organ that requires a lot of blood. Hopefully you understand that biology. I'm not going to say more about that. Right? Do I need to explain that? To operate that organ, you need blood to go there. Right? It makes sense? So again, all intertwined with blood. So that's those. Neshama is the brain, which is the mochin, which is now bina. It's the sefira of bina on the tree of life, and it's the world of bria, understanding the cosmos. Chaya is chokhmah and atzilut, and that divine emanation. Just like the chaya is like your emanation. Chaya is like your atzilut, your aura that's shining out. By the way, I mentioned this recently. Scientists this past year discovered something called biophotons, that your body is literally releasing light. Like there are photons of light released by your brain. It was first discovered in the brain. The brain is glowing, and so is the body, the skin. There is literally a chaya, an aura to your body, and now it's a scientific fact. It's not just a mystical idea anymore. Scientific fact that your body releases biophotons. Okay. We can skip all of that, and we're just going to finish with, where are we here in this? Where are you? Can you gauge where you are in this process? So the Arizal also says that if you have completed yourself to the highest level, you're called a malach. That's why Eliyahu was called a malach, became a malach. Chanoch also was on that level. Chanoch became the angel Metatron because they reached that level. And the Arizal says Chanoch was higher than Eliyahu, because he actually had an even higher level within that Yechida space. He had a higher level called Zihara Ila'a, like an even more supernal glow. Because there are many levels, even within these, there are many levels. We're simplifying it a little bit, but there are even more levels within them. You can always keep refining and keep going in the spiritual world and unlocking more spiritual powers. It's like the analogy that I like to use. It's like when you're a black belt in karate or some martial art. Once you get your black belt, you're not done. It's just the first dan. You're not dan. There's more dan. Done. You know what I'm talking about? There's first dan, second dan, third dan. Like one black belt can be just got his black belt last week, and one black belt can be like 50 years into it, and they're on different dans. Nefesh de Atzilut, Ruach de Atzilut, Zihara Ila'a. There's first dan, second dan, third dan. Even within black belts, there's differentiation. And just as a little martial arts joke, you know what's the highest dan in karate called? They actually have names. Anybody do like martial arts? Karate, yeah? The first dan is called Shodan, right? And then Nidan, and then there's different dans. The highest dan is the 10th dan. You know what it's called? I'm not making this up. This is Japanese. It's called Judan. I'm not kidding. Look it up. The 10th dan, the highest dan in karate and in judo is called Judan. So this is when even the Japanese knew what's up. So you had to be on the level of a Judan in spirituality as well. The 10th dan. just as an interesting little bit, because Rosh Hashanah is coming up next week, on Rosh Hashanah, one of the things that we commemorate, as the Gemara says in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, is that Yosef came out of prison. Yosef came out of prison on Rosh Hashanah and went before Pharaoh and reached his greatness on that day. And the Arizal says that happened. How did that happen? Because that's when he got that high level. He got the soul of Chanoch, that Zihara Ilah. He finally reached that level. And that's why in Psalm 81, which we sing on Rosh Hashanah, it says, Tik'u bechodesh shofar bekesel yom chagenu. That's how the psalm begins, right? Or it's not how it begins, but in the that's how the passage begins. Tik'u bechodesh shofar, blow the shofar at the start of the month, bekesel yom chagenu, and on the full moon there will be a chag, which is Sukkot. Ki chok leIsrael hu mishpat leElokei Yaakov. This is the day of mishpat. This is Judgment Day. And then it strangely says, Eidut beYehosef samo, that this is like a testimony of Yosef. What does that have to do with anything? So the Gemara says, because it happened on Judgment Day. It happened on Rosh Hashanah that Yosef came out of prison. But why does Tehillim, again, it's a secret in Tehillim, why does Tehillim say here, Eidut beYehosef? It's an extra hey. Yosef is Yud Vav Samech Pei. Why is here the one place in the Tanakh where it says Yehosef, an extra hey? Yud, Hey, Vav, Samech Pei. What's going on? So the Arizal explains that extra hey he got that night. That represents the soul of Chanoch, of Metatron. Inyan hu ki Yosef HaTzadik zachal leneshama zu shel Chanoch. He merited that high level. Ve'lachen hi Yosef yafet tor. And that's why also Yosef was so beautiful, so handsome. Ki zakal le'yofio shel Adam HaRishon. He had the beauty of Adam HaRishon, which came from, and nimshechet lo, from that same place of neshama ilah de atzilut, on that high level, the yechida level of atzilut. And when did Yosef merit it? Lo zacha ad otah halayla she'ayta miketz shnatayim yamim. It was that night, 2 years later, right? Parashat Miketz, 2 years later, shenigtera alav gzara latzet min hasoar, when he came out of the prison. Ve'bayom ha'u ala legdula, and that's when he actually ascended to greatness. And Arizal says that's the secret of Betze'eto al Eretz Mitzrayim. That pasuk in Tehillim continues to say, "Beyehosef samu betze'eto al Eretz Mitzrayim." So it all happened that night on Rosh Hashanah. And if you've been listening to what I've been saying over the past year, and about this year 2025 and Miketz, Parashat Miketz, having 2025 words, 2025 words, and the significance of being for us Miketz Shnatayim, 2 years from October 7 this year, I think it just adds to the significance when you consider Yosef. The Arizal says, receive that high level of soul, Miketz Shnatayim, on Rosh Hashanah. So this Rosh Hashanah next week is going to be a particularly auspicious time as we globally reach our Miketz Shnatayim in kind of this Mashiach ben Yosef process, right? Before Mashiach ben David, remember the book of Kol HaTorah, we're in the Mashiach ben Yosef era. So for us collectively in this Mashiach ben Yosef era, we're Miketz Shnatayim from October 7 when our world was turned upside down. We're in a very different world today, and we'll never go back to the way it was before, as we all know.
Maybe we can rectify the sin of selling Yosef too.
We will have to, no doubt, absolutely. Remember also, as we come to Yom Kippur, and I'm not going to talk about it because there's a shiur already on it on YouTube, you can listen to the recording, the 5 prayers of Yom Kippur correspond to the 5 souls. Right? On Yom Kippur we have Ne'ilah, we have a 5th prayer after Mincha, and you also have 5 things that you're forbidden from doing on Yom Kippur. Right? There's 5 prohibitions, 5 afflictions of Yom Kippur. And they correspond neatly to the 5 souls. Because you're purifying your 5 souls. You're rectifying your soul. You're atoning for your soul. And so we have 5 restrictions, each one corresponding to a part of your soul. And 5 prayers, each one corresponding to a part of your soul. So that class, the Kabbalah of Yom Kippur, is already on YouTube. If you haven't heard it, you can just listen to the recording, so we don't have to talk about it now. And just in terms of thinking about where you are, hopefully, we all want to be at the Yechidah level. Remember, Nefesh is animalistic. People who are nobody here. At Nefesh is people who are animalistic, materialistic, very selfish. That's a Nefesh person. And there are such people. This kind of narcissistic, egotistic, selfish people. That's like animal level. Not much different than an animal whose whole life is biological needs. You can parallel it to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs from psychology? The bottom level is the nefesh level. It's just biological needs. It's like food, reproduction, it's all that. That's like animals do that too. If a person's whole life is basically what animals do, they're eating, they're kind of hunting, they're reproducing, that's nefesh. Above that is ruach, right? Remember, ruach is your vital organs, ruach is your emotions, the yetzer is associated, yetzer hara, yetzer hatov. That struggle is said to be in the heart. So it's more refinement. The kaved, the liver, is associated with kavod, with wanting honor, working on that, working on your ego, working on your yetzara, yetzara tov, different aspects of your body, your kidneys, your netzach and hod, working on persistence, not being lazy, not being overly emotional, not letting your heart rule your body. So that's like, most people, I would say, are probably in that ruach space where they're trying to rectify their ruach. In today's generation in particular, we have record levels of depression and anxiety and stress, anger, short temper, all this, that's all ruach stuff. People who struggle with these things. If you've overcome that, if you're able to, doesn't mean you never get stressed. It's a natural physiological response, fight or flight, the adrenaline's going, but you have to know how to be able to calm it down and move on, not to let it completely cloud you, ruin you. Now you're like, the stress is like making you, paralyzing you. You're immobile, you don't know what to do, you're indecisive. That's a problem. That's like struggling with ruach energy. If you're able to overcome that and you're able to deal with stresses comfortably, get rid of the anger, get rid of all these like negative qualities, that short-temperedness and whatever. Doesn't mean, again, that anger, everybody has anger, but anger should be like righteous indignation. Anger for a good reason. Angry at Hamas. Channel that anger from a place of righteousness, not from a place of wrath and fury. That's all in the ruach level. And that corresponds to, actually, in the Maslow's chart, to safety needs and your surroundings and the people around you, and feeling safe, right? Feeling comfortable, feeling safe, being able to function in life without the stress and anxiety and depression, misery and sadness. If you're living in a level of general state of happiness, which unfortunately most people aren't these days, but I mean without drugs, whether prescription or recreational, if you're able to maintain a basic state of happiness without any kind of drug, then you're probably already near or hopefully in the neshama level of working on yourself. Assuming that you're not getting violently angry and, God forbid, and you're not like abusing other people, but you've worked on, you're a basic good person. You're a good human being. And people are generally pleased with you. Like it says in Pirkei Avot, Kol sheruach habriyot nochai meno, every person with whom his surroundings are pleased with him, ruach hamakom nochai meno, God is pleased with you also. So if you're in that level where the people around you are pleased with you, which means you're probably not an angry, rash, abusive person. So everybody generally around you, you got to know that too. People who have a huge ego might think everybody loves them, but I think generally you get a sense of, do people like you or not? So if people around you are happy with you, your family especially, your children, your spouse, that's a big one. And you don't need regular drugs to maintain a general level of happiness and well-being, and you're not paralyzed by stress, then you're on the neshama level. And now you're actually working on mental refinement, intellectual refinement, the higher character states, the mochin levels, right? That's neshama level. And when you've refined that, and you're able to think clearly and rationally and logically, today we also have a lot of illogical thinking. I've spoken about it a lot, even in Judaism, a lot of practices that are irrational, illogical, all kinds of crazy stuff that's doresh el hametim, trying to talk to the dead, all kinds of bizarre rituals. That's illogical, irrational thinking, right? That's your struggle there. We got to move away from that. You have to have clear sechel, right? That's sechel, that's neshama level. So in the religious world, you have that. A lot of people in the religious world have really rectified their nefesh ruach. They're amazing people, like tzaddikim, and everybody loves them, whatever. But the issue is intellectual. There's a deficiency in the sechel a little bit, and that's where we have to work on. Not to be drawn to idolatries and various related pagan practices and rituals. That's the test in the neshama level. And once you've overcome that, then you're actually observing Torah properly. And then you can go even higher. Then you can go to chaya, and Yechidah. And when you're on that level, you don't need me to tell you what to do at that level. Then you already know what the rectification is. Everybody has their thing. And then eventually when you reach that high level, the Zohar says this, the Arizal says this, that on the Yechidah level, the whole universe is like your playground. You've aligned yourself with God, essentially. Remember, Keter, which is Yechidah, the highest level, is the Ratzon of God. And that's where Pirkei Avot also says, Aser Ratzoncha Kirtzono. If you align your will like His will, and then He will do His will like your will, Batel Ratzoncha Mipnei Ratzono, you nullify, you get to the point where you've nullified your animalistic will to do divine will, Ve'u, and then what will He do? It says, He will nullify the wills of others, la'asot ratzoncha, to do your will. Meaning the wills of even others will be nullified before you. That means that you now have like full mastery over the cosmos. That's Adam Kadmon. That's the original light that God wanted. God expects really from each of us. That's the level we should strive towards. The highest universe, the Adam Kadmon. Right. I mean, sure. At that level, you can access that hidden light, the Or Ganuz. So that's the whole thing. That's where what we're aiming towards, right? We want to, hopefully, nobody here is in the Nefesh level. Hopefully, we're growing out of the Ruach level, and then the Neshama, Chaya, Yechidah, to the point where you become the highest person, the Ben Lekut Shabrichu, son of God, Bat Melech, daughter of the king, right? And the whole universe becomes your playground. And then you're really here, you're doing what you were meant here to do, right? You're doing God's work. You are making the world a better place, but also enjoying it. You're in a Gan Eden, essentially, right? Now you're playing the game on expert level, right? And you're enjoying the game. That's when you truly enjoy the game. And life is not frustrating, and you know how to overcome challenges, and the whole universe conforms to you. And you're able to manifest whatever it is that you want, you will manifest. Because everything you want is good anyways. It's all for a holy purpose. So there's no reason why you shouldn't get it. Because you're a good person, you've purified all your 5 souls, and your intentions are entirely good, and so the universe conforms to whatever it is that you want. So God willing, this will be the year that we can all ascend to that level, Be'ezrat Hashem, and wish you all a K'tiva v'chatima tova, and Shana tova u'metuka, and Geula this year, Be'ezrat Hashem. Happy New Year, everybody. Chag Sameach.